Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I'm here with Coach Hannah. She's a certified THM lifestyle coach like I am. She's here to chat with you all today. And I know you're familiar with the process, but I will be off screen, but still sitting here just listening. And if you have any questions, she said she'd be willing to answer them at the end of the session. So please feel free to post those. I'm going to go ahead and bow out, but thank you so much for joining us today. Hannah, do you mind introducing yourself and telling us a little bit about who you are before you get started?
Yeah, sure. So I'm Hannah. Like Jennifer said, I live in Canada, Manitoba, Canada. I don't know if any ladies are in your group are Canadian or not, but there's not that very many Canadian coaches, so it's kind of fun for me because for Canadian ladies to like sign up with a US coach, it just costs more with the price exchange and everything. So it's nice being able to offer them a more affordable option for Canadian ladies. But I also coach ladies from like other countries too. So a little bit about me. I love outdoor activities like kayaking and camping, hiking, all that sort of fun stuff. It's kind of sad because it's getting so close to winter and I won't be able to do as much of that, but I love packing as much as I can into the summer and just traveling, seeing new places. I love going to cute little cafes and shopping, and pretty much I'm down for anything. If anybody ever wants to do anything fun, I'm like down for it. But um, so I have been doing THM for almost 3 years now, and it actually started. Um, I started a blog when I first started before I even started coaching. That's kind of how I got into it. I did a food blog and then decided to go on to coaching. So I've been a coach for just a little over a year, but it's been super fun helping ladies reach their goals and just make progress. It's very rewarding. When I was younger, I always wanted to be a nurse. And then when I started getting more interested in health, I discovered that I'd rather just help people stay out of the hospital than fix them once they're in the hospital because so many things are diet and lifestyle um, fixable, like things that we go to the hospital for that we could totally just fix through diet. Of course, there's more extreme issues and acute issues too, but I love just being a coach and helping ladies get better health rather than fixing it after it's already broken in the hospital. So that's kind of my spin-off of wanting to be a nurse. Um, so my topic today is going to be about the scale and putting too much importance on the scale. I think a lot of us, maybe we don't even realize it, but we're just a little bit too tied to the scale and the number and base our worth and our value off the number on the scale. And just a little disclaimer, I know some people, maybe the scale motivates you and that's great. You can use it like as a progress checker. It helps keep you motivated to stay on plan. That's wonderful. I know like Pearl has said she weighs in every day just to kind of get an idea of what's going on. But then there's other people like me, and I think Serena's in this camp too, that if you're on the scale too much, it just starts to play mind games with you and it just becomes a big stressor. And so that's the kind of people that I'm talking to today. But no matter if you like using the scale and it doesn't bother you, or if it kind of is too much of a hold in your life, it's always just nice to hear other people's stories and just learn what we can from that. So my backstory, I'm just going to kind of share my story of how I came to my THM journey and how I ended up actually throwing out my scale last year. And then hopefully that inspires you. So before THM, I didn't worry about my weight too much growing up. I was pretty much could eat whatever I wanted and just stayed slim. It was I ate like a horse growing up. We were just like kids outside playing and I could eat whatever I wanted. But in my later teenage years, I started actually doing like house sitting for some people. And I had never had to cook for myself before. I had done lots of baking like for our family, but never really had been into cooking that much. So I think looking back, that's kind of when I started putting on a few pounds is when I started house sitting. And that kind of got me because I was doing like all my own cooking. It wasn't always the greatest, healthiest food, but that kind of got me interested then after in health and how to lose weight just to slim down. So that would be about 10 years ago that I actually became interested in health. And this kind of just led to I would say a very up and down journey of trying all different sorts of diets because I'm the type of person I love learning. I love trying new things. So I guess I kind of just turned myself into like a health food guinea pig in some ways, which ended up with problems for me later, but also I don't regret it because I learned lots that I can now incorporate into my coaching. So I started out just kind of with what you would call like a whole grain Jane, I guess, more like Weston A. Price, that kind of diet. I did like whole grains and kefir, fermented foods, gut foods, just really whole mostly organic foods. And I'm not even sure why I stopped doing that, but maybe I probably just saw like another diet out there that looked fun to try and decided I'd try it because I was always down for a way to help me lose a few more pounds or whatever. So I did raw food for a while. I did bone broth fasts. What else did I do? I don't think I ever did vegan because well, I guess kind of raw food was kind of vegan, but I did low fat. I've done low carb and just never found a way where I could easily maintain my weight or a way where it was sustainable. Like it was a healthy lifestyle that was actually sustainable just for everyday life. Because when you're out and about and you're on all these crazy diets, it's really hard to do that at like restaurants and other people's places and all that sort of stuff. It's just not sustainable. So I would do it for a little bit and then just go back to eating fairly healthy, but not really healthy, like the healthy diet that everybody thinks is healthy, but isn't really, like orange juice and yogurt, but that's sweetened with sugar and all that sort of stuff. But doing these diets, it really started to kind of mess up my metabolism and made it harder for me not to gain weight. So I've never had like a huge issue with needing to lose a whole lot of weight, but it was more, I just really struggled not to gain weight and to maintain my weight. So at one point I ended up doing a Whole30, and it was a good experience because they tell you not to step on the scale for the entire duration of the 30 days, which I didn't think was possible for me to go 30 days without stepping on the scale. I wasn't quite as addicted to the scale at this point as I had been before, or as I got later, sorry. But it still was something that I had to like step on every day just to make sure I knew what that number was. And I don't know if any of you can relate, but have you ever had a day where you like feel great, you wake up feeling so good, and like you feel slim, you feel like you've been doing everything right, and you step on the scale and it's like up 3 pounds or something. And you're just like, what on earth is going on? You go through your day the entire day before to see what you might have ate that made the scale go up. And it's so silly because if you feel great, especially if you're at your goal weight and you feel great, why would you let that number dictate how you feel for the rest of the day or what you eat throughout the day? Like I would step on the scale, and if it was up, I would think I had to go super light on my food and salads. And if it was down, I was like, oh, maybe I can have fun and eat a little bit extra today, right? But that's not a good way to judge how you eat off the number on the scale. It should be off how you feel, what your body is just wanting, instead of making that number go as low as possible. So I did the Whole30 and I lost 8 pounds, I believe, and I got to pretty much the slimmest I've ever been and probably ever will be. But that really messed up my metabolism because unintentionally I had gone very low carb. Because when you do a Whole30, you basically take out all forms of carbs except for carbs that would come from like vegetables. And you can have potatoes and sweet potatoes and like squash, butternut squash and that type of stuff, but there's not very many foods that actually have carbs in them on a Whole30. And I was thinking that I was eating spaghetti squash and it was a carb. We know from True Healthy Mama that spaghetti squash is not a carb, it's like fuel pole. So I definitely was barely getting any carbs in, and this really wrecked up my metabolism, and it actually made me lose my period too for a while. And I had no idea before that what you ate could affect your period so much, but after looking into it a little bit, I was like, I probably have actually gone way too low carb without realizing it and lost too much weight for my body. So I actually had to incorporate more carbs and gain some weight back before I got my period back. And it took probably a good year for me to get that regulated again because it was very like sporadic at first. So that was like, in a way, the Whole30 was good for me, but because it got me away from the scale, but it also messed up my metabolism and brought about these issues that I then had to deal with for like the next year. So I knew that I couldn't go so low carb, but for some reason I decided to do keto because that was the newest health craze that I saw everybody doing, which I don't know how I expected to do keto and get enough carbs, but that is what I did. But yeah, even keto, it's hard to stay on long term. Maybe some people can do it and survive wonderful on it for long term, but it's just giving up all the cutting out all the carbs and everything. It's very hard to do long term. I guess it's a little bit easier because you can usually find protein and vegetables in most places, but still, it's just not sustainable. And plus, it was also still messing with my metabolism because I wasn't getting the carbs that I needed. And at this point, I don't even know if I was eating it so much for health as to just as to maintain my weight and to stay slim. But I wouldn't do it very faithfully. I would do it for a while and then get my weight down to where I want it to be, and then just kind of fall off the keto bandwagon and eat whatever. And my weight would go back up, usually about like the same 10 or 12 pounds, just over and over and over. And I would think like, how in the world can I eat where I can just maintain my weight, eat healthy food for like 3 square meals a day like I used to, and not have to worry about gaining weight so easily. And with all this bouncing up and down, this is kind of when I really got obsessed about the scale. Like I would literally weigh myself probably, I don't even know, every time I ate after every meal just to see how much it had gone up. Like I was probably weighing myself 10 or more times a day, which is just insane looking back. It's crazy to even think about. I would weigh myself first thing getting up, and that number would kind of decide how much food I ate throughout the day. I would even be thirsty sometimes and not drink enough liquid because it would make the number go up. I was just so focused on not having that number on the scale go up. I'm sorry, guys, I didn't turn off my notifications, so hopefully you're not seeing there's some coming through. But anyways, too late now. So yeah, my whole focus was just on keeping that scale from going up as much as possibly I could to get it as low as possible. And I never was like bulimic or anything like that. I didn't go that extreme, but it was just more with my food, restricting my food. And I would take the scale with me when I was traveling on trips, just so I could, because I had to know what my weight was. It was like I could not fathom life without a scale to keep me knowing what my weight was and what my weight was doing, which that number bounces up so much from day to day too. This was another reason I like to tell ladies to not weigh more than once a week, because it fluctuates so much from day to day. Like you could easily bounce up 2 pounds and just be water that you lose the next day. It really plays with your mind when you're weighing yourself like every day or more than once a day. So I was doing keto, very obsessed with the scale, and it was slowing my metabolism down even more, so that it was like Sweet and Pearl have said this in podcasts, that the longer you do keto, eventually it probably leads to intermittent fasting because your body just can't process the food properly because your metabolism is so damaged. So which is what I had to do. So I went to intermittent fasting. I would just skip breakfast, just do lunch and supper. And eventually I went to where I was trying to do only supper, which is a very extreme form of intermittent fasting. And I didn't do this like every day, because I would do it faithfully for a while and then just kind of fall off the bandwagon and then jump back on. But I was definitely skipping breakfast most days. And when you restrict your food like that, eventually you get to a point where you're just so hungry that you eat everything in sight, and then you feel like a failure because your body isn't used to processing that much food. And it just makes the scale like bounce way up, and it's hard to lose the weight again, because your body's metabolism is so damaged that you have to go back to restricting. And it's just kind of this constant cycle of binging and restricting your food. And it's just not a very fun place to be in. But at the time, I didn't know what else to do because it was just so hard for me to not gain weight. Yeah, so I was totally addicted to the scale, totally in this cycle of like eating and then restricting. I would maybe eat too much because I had not been eating enough, and then restrict my food for the next 24 hours. It was just really crazy. Looking back, it's like, what an awful way to live. And it just shows how slowed down my metabolism was, that I could actually go almost 24 hours without eating. Because these days, if I was going to go that long, I can barely like make my 4 hours between meals and then starving, because my metabolism has improved so much with Trim Healthy Mama. So at some point, I guess it's almost been like 3 years now, I found Trim Healthy Mama through a podcast somehow. I'm not even sure how it ended up in my email box, but I found it and I listened to it. I can't remember what episode it was. I was just super intrigued, super interested in the fact that they could eat carbs, like they weren't cutting out any food groups. So I think I listened to that podcast on a Saturday, and I like downloaded the plan book and all the cookbooks onto a Kindle the same day, and basically jumped in like probably Monday. It was like 2 days later I jumped in. I think I ordered like the actual books on Monday too, because I was just so excited. I had to have the actual books. And yeah, I have started and pretty much have not looked back. Of course, I was terrified of carbs from doing keto. So I remember the first email I did was the Cobbler Commerce Shake in Trim Healthy Table. because I thought it was a smoothie, so it wasn't going to be as fattening, right? Because it was just liquid. So that was the first email I had, and I definitely did not eat enough emails in the beginning, but slowly started incorporating them in, and have found out like now I mostly eat emails, and I do a lot of crossovers too because I'm at goal weight, which is a whole other story how I kind of had to drop like the diet mentality around crossovers, because for me at goal weight they work fine. So I do a lot of emails and then crossovers, and of course some S too, but emails are definitely what I would consider for myself and a lot of ladies the most slimming Trim Healthy Mama meal. So I did keto basically, or not keto, Trim Healthy Mama basically through that winter, and then summer kind of off and on sporadically. And then that fall, I decided I was going to sign up for group coaching and did 12 weeks of group coaching, which was, looking back, probably like the pivotal point in my Trim Healthy Mama journey, because I committed to blogging my food and keeping track of that and sharing it in the group. And that really helped me break free from like the remaining little bits of intermittent fasting I had left over from keto, because I was doing THM, but I was not having snacks. I was basically just doing 3 meals a day because I was still thinking less food would be better, right? I was doing my 3 meals, but I didn't want to eat too much and make the scale go up too much. But having to share my food in that food group, it really helped me develop good patterns to develop consistently eating 3 to 4 hours apart, which was really huge in helping me completely get out of that binge and restrict cycle, because I couldn't go and like eat way too much and then not eat for 8 hours and share that in the group, right? Because everybody would wonder what on earth I had been doing. So I had to do my 3 to 4 hours, which maintained an even blood sugar, which kept my body fueled and got me out of that binge and restrict cycle, which was so freeing to finally be out of that. I have basically been completely free from it from doing that group coaching. And then I was still weighing myself at that point, but I was getting more used to the idea of just eating for health and kind of letting my weight do what it wanted. Not that I would want to gain a bunch of weight, but if you're basically at goal weight, it doesn't really matter that much if the scale fluctuates up and down 5 pounds, right? I'd rather just be happy with how I feel and not worry about what the number is doing so much. Because one thing I know, when I first started THM, I still had like this goal weight that I had in my mind that I had to get to, which was like 145. But it was always so difficult for me to maintain 145. And it was just so much easier for me to stay around 150 without having to go like crazy and eat fuel poles and all this sort of stuff. So sometimes you might have like a goal in your mind that you think you need to get to, but if it's really hard to stay at that goal weight, and it's maybe a lot easier for you just to stay like a couple pounds above what you think is your goal weight, maybe that's your body's way of telling you that that's what your actual goal weight should be. If you feel good at that weight, there's no point. Personally, I don't think there's no point in pushing yourself to get even lower if your body is happy and you're happy at a certain weight. Because the scale number is just it's just a number, right? If you feel good where you are and you think that you're basically at goal weight and your body is happy staying there, I would say that's probably telling you that that's your goal weight. So I had done the group coaching. I was in a really good spot with THM. I was only weighing myself, I think at that point, once a month, just to kind of see what things were doing. And then that spring I decided, which has been like probably a year and a half now, maybe a little longer, I'm not sure the exact date, but I decided I was just going to throw out the scale and like be done with it. I had been weighing myself for quite a while. It was just kind of sitting underneath my dresser in case I wanted to pull it out one day, and see what I weighed. So I decided I might as well just go. So I threw it in the garbage, and that has been like the most wonderful thing ever, to not have to know what that number is, to not have to worry about it, to just feel good, to just eat 3 square meals a day and snacks. Like I eat way more now than I ever used to, because my metabolism has improved so much. It can process all that food, and I just go on trips. I don't just eat like a normal human being 365 days of the year. Just carry on my life, eating for health. And that has been one of the biggest mindset switches probably for me, is instead of eating to lose weight, is to eat for health, because I feel like I'm at goal weight. I feel great in my clothes. So if I'm just eating to be healthy, my weight is just kind of naturally take care of itself. So yeah, just for you, if you're struggling with the scale and that number plays way too big of a part in your life and how you feel, if it makes you happy or sad, just to maybe step back from that a little bit. You don't have to give it up completely right now if you don't want to. If you want to, fine. But if you're someone who weighs every day and that's just a little bit too much stress for you, because another interesting point is that back when I was still weighing myself, if I ever wanted to really slim down a few more pounds, I would just put my scale away and it was like the weight would drop off when I wasn't obsessing about the scale. And you think that would have shown me something, but old habits die hard. But the stress from that number and seeing it every day, it just raises your cortisol, which makes it harder to lose weight. We know that, right? So I would suggest not weighing more than once a week personally. And if you're at once a week and maybe you want to push it to every 2 weeks or maybe every month and maybe you want to give it up completely, that's cool. But I would definitely personally not recommend more than once a week. That kind of will give you like a general pattern of what your weight is doing, especially if you're still losing weight. And once you reach goal weight, you can maybe push it to every 2 weeks or once every month just to get an idea. And maybe you could just give it up completely like I did, because it's been the most freeing experience of my life not to have to worry about that crazy number anymore. Just eat until I feel good. And using your clothes as a judge of where you're at. Like if I have clothes that are maybe starting to get a little bit snug, then I'm like, okay, Hannah, you need to back off in certain areas a little bit. Maybe you've been doing too many heavy S or something. And just going by that, letting my clothes judge what I do and how I feel instead of a number. It's so much less stressful. So to recap, I would say just stress less about the scale, enjoy your life a little bit more. Don't let that number have such a hold over you because it's just a number. Some people will be a size 12 and be like at their goal weight, be perfect, maybe 170 pounds and be perfectly where they're supposed to be, 180 pounds even. And some people are going to have to be smaller. It's not really the number that's so important, right? It's when you feel good and you know that you're in good shape, your clothes are fitting great, and it's easy to maintain the number that you're at. So that is my story. I hope it was helpful. I hope you learned something. I hope it encouraged you that the scale isn't everything. It's just one number that you can use on your journey.
That is excellent advice. Thank you so much, Hannah, for joining us. And yes, we talk a lot about how it's just data. It's just information. It's not a determining factor about whether or not you're successful. So I think this was a very timely talk to listen to. So thank you so much for joining us. Loretta asked, how do you know what is ideal weight to try to make as goal weight? So I don't know if you have an opinion on that.
Well, like I said, you can, like, there are ways to kind of figure out for your age or your height and your body size what is kind of a good range to shoot for. And then once you get in that range, just kind of seeing where your body naturally gravitates toward. Like if you're going for the low end, it's just really hard to stay there maybe. And it's easy for you to sit like 5 pounds above where you thought maybe your low end was, and your body stays there naturally. That kind of shows you what your goal weight might be, like where your body likes to stay when you're feeling good.
I think that's really good advice. And I like too that you specified the 5 pounds. Sometimes you sit 5 pounds above, because once THM years ago introduced the queen weight idea, I think there are a number of people who've gotten to, maybe they're stuck or stalled or stubborn losers, and they're stuck and they're like, okay, this is my queen weight, but they're so unhappy with it because they know that they're not where they want to be. And that is very different from sitting a little bit above where you think you should be. If you feel like, or if your doctor recommends that you need, 20 or 30 pounds or whatever it may be, that is different. That is you could just be stuck or stalled if you're there. But if you are 5 pounds away or within a clothing size or very close to where you want to be, and I think it's really good, Hannah, that you clarified where you feel good too. And I think that's something we can all pay attention to, because that does make a difference. If you're feeling good in your skin and you feel healthy, it is very likely that's your queen weight if it's just a little bit above what you have thought this whole time will be the number. But that is a hard thing. And I think that goal weights adjust a lot, because you can get close and realize that you need more. You can get close and realize you need less. So that's a really excellent point. Marta said, thank you for joining us today, Hannah. So I don't know if you see the comments or not. But thank you again so much for joining us today. I loved hearing your story. And everybody, I will be posting Hannah's contact information and how to reach out to her if you'd like to connect with her more in the group. She's going to send me that information and I will post it later today. But thank you again for joining us. It was great to have you.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Goodbye, everyone.
Bye.